Today I want to talk to you about guns, why we have them, why the Bill of Rights guarantees we can have them, and why my right to own a gun is more important than your right to rail against it in the press. I believe every good journalist needs to know why the Second Amendment must be considered more important than the First Amendment. This may be a bitter pill to swallow, but the right to keep and bear arms is not archaic. It's not some outdated, dusty idea some dead old white guys dreamed up in fear of the redcoats. No, it is just as essential to liberty today as it was in 1776. Now, these words may not play well at the press club, but it's the gospel down at the local bar and grill. And your efforts to undermine the Second Amendment, to deride it and degrade it, to readily accept diluting it and easily promote redefining it, threaten not only the physical well-being of millions of Americans, but the core concept of individual liberty that our founding fathers struggled to perfect and to protect. So now you know it doubtless does not surprise you. I believe strongly in the right for every law-abiding citizen to keep and bear arms, for what I think are good reasons. The original amendments we refer to as the Bill of Rights contain 10 of what constitutional framers termed unalienable rights. These rights are ranked in random order and are linked by essential equality. The Bill of Rights came to us with blinders on. It does not recognize color, class, or wealth. It protects not just the rights of actors, editors, or reporters, but extends even to those we love to hate. That is why even the most heinous criminals have rights until they are convicted of a crime. The beauty of the Constitution can be found in the way that it takes human nature into consideration. We are not a docile species capable of coexisting perfectly in a great society under everlasting benevolent rule. We are what we are: egotistical, corruptible, vengeful, and sometimes a bit power-mad. The Bill of Rights takes all of this into consideration and builds barriers that need to be in place to protect the individual. You, of course, remain zealous that a free nation must have a free press and free speech to battle injustice, to unmask corruption, and provide a voice for those in need of a fair and impartial forum. I agree wholeheartedly. But how many of you would agree with me that the right to keep and bear arms is not just equally important, but the most important, to keep all other rights that we enjoy? I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. It is America's first freedom, the one right that protects all others. Among freedom of speech, of religion, of the press, of redress of grievances, it is the first among equals. It is the only one that offers the absolute capacity to live without fear. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all. And either you believe that or you don't, and you must decide. Because there's no such thing as a free nation where police and military are allowed the force of arms, but individual citizens are not. That's a big brother knows best theater of the absurd that never bode well for the peasant class, the working class, or even for reporters. Yes, our Constitution provides the doorway for your news and commentary to pass through free and unfettered. But that doorway is framed by the muskets of those that stood between a vision of liberty and absolute anarchy at a place called Concord Bridge. Our whole revolution began when the British sent the redcoats door to door to confiscate our guns. And they didn't succeed, because the guns went out the back door with their owners. Emerson said it best: "By the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once embattled farmers stood, and fired the shot heard round the world." King George called us rabble in arms. But by God's grace, George Washington and many brave men gave us our country. Soon after, God's grace and a few great men gave us our Constitution. It's been said that the creation of the United States is the single most important political act in history. I'll sign to that. In the next 2 centuries, though, freedom did not flourish. The next revolution, the French, ended in bloody terror and then Napoleon's tyranny. The world has seen no shortage of dictators since then. Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Castro, Pol Pot, all these monsters began by confiscating private arms, and then literally soaking the earth with the blood of tens and tens of millions of their own people. The joys of gun control. Now, I doubt any of you would prefer a rolled-up newspaper as a weapon against a dictator or criminal intruder. But in essence, that is what you are asking your loved ones to do with your ill-contrived and totally naive campaign against the Second Amendment. Besides, how can we entrust you to the Second Amendment when you are so stingy with your own First Amendment? I say this because of the way, in recent days, you've treated your own. Those journalists you consider the least among you. How quick you are to finger the paparazzi with blame. How eager you are to draw a line where there is none, and demand a distinction within the First Amendment that sneers, "They're not one of us." How readily you let your lesser brethren fall, as if their rights not as worthy, their purpose not as pure, or their freedom not as sacred as yours. So now, as politicians consider new laws to shackle and gag the paparazzi, who among you will speak up? Who will stand and defend them? If you don't, I will. Because you do not define the First Amendment. It defines you. And it is bigger than you. Big enough to embrace all of you, plus all those you would exclude. That's how freedom works. It also demands